The December wind swept through Manhattan's concrete valleys like a blade, sharp and unforgiving. Megan Reed pulled her thin jacket tighter around her body as she navigated the morning crowd on Fifth Avenue, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. At 34, she had become an expert in the mathematics of survival, calculating each dollar, stretching every meal, making sacrifices that had become so routine she barely noticed them anymore. But her daughter noticed. Haley always noticed. The girl was 10 now, old enough to understand that new shoes were a luxury, that birthday parties at expensive venues were for other children, that saying no to field trips wasn't about permission, but about money. 3 years had passed since Thomas Reed walked out of their lives, leaving behind nothing but a forwarding address that led nowhere and debts that seemed to multiply in the darkness. Megan had learned not to think about him, not to waste energy on bitterness or regret. Survival required focus. "Morning, Miss Reed," Pete called from his station inside the lobby of the towering building on Park Avenue. The security guard had a kind face, weathered by years and probably his own struggles, though he never complained. "Morning, Pete." She stamped snow from her boots, the worn leather cracking slightly at the movement. "Brutal out there today." "Going to get worse before it gets better," he replied, buzzing her through. "Weather Service says another 6 inches by tonight." The lobby of Costa Enterprises was all dark marble and muted gold fixtures, elegant in a way that felt old rather than modern. Unlike the glass and steel towers that dominated Manhattan's skyline, this building had history. Wait, it had been here long before the tech boom, before the startup culture, before the city transformed into a playground for the very rich. The building belonged to an older New York, one that operated by different rules. Megan rode the elevator to the 22nd floor, where the Human Resources Department occupied a suite of offices decorated in dark wood and leather. Everything here felt substantial, permanent, as if the company itself was carved from stone rather than built on quarterly earnings and shareholder value. She had worked here for 18 months, and still the place felt foreign to her, like she was a visitor in someone else's world. Victoria Dawson arrived at 9:15, as she always did, her designer coat draped over her arm, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors with military precision. She was the kind of woman who made others feel inadequate simply by existing. Perfectly styled, perfectly dressed, perfectly cruel in the way only those born into comfort could be. "The quarterly reports," Victoria said without preamble, not bothering with greetings or pleasantries. "They need to be on my desk by noon, and Mr. Costa is visiting the department today, so I expect everything to be immaculate." Megan looked up from her computer. "Costa's coming here?" In 18 months, she had never seen Gabriel Costa. The man was a ghost, a name on paychecks and company letterhead, but never a physical presence. Employees whispered about him in break rooms, some with fear, others with respect, a few with something that looked like devotion. He owned Costa Enterprises, a sprawling operation that dealt in imports, exports, real estate development, and investments that nobody quite understood. The company employed thousands, but Costa himself remained invisible, conducting business from locations unknown, making decisions that filtered down through layers of management. "Yes, that Mr. Costa," Victoria said, her voice sharp with impatience. "He does these walkthroughs occasionally. God knows why he bothers. Just make sure the coffee station has those Italian beans he prefers. The dark roast, not the medium. He's particular about his coffee." The morning dissolved into a blur of spreadsheets and phone calls, the kind of mindless administrative work that paid the rent but did nothing for the soul. At noon, Megan grabbed her brown paper bag, turkey sandwich, apple, homemade cookies she had baked with Haley over the weekend, and headed downstairs. The snow had intensified, transforming the city into a white chaos of swirling flakes in obscured visibility. As she pushed through the revolving door, she nearly missed him. A man sat against the building's exterior wall, partially concealed behind a stack of cardboard boxes that provided minimal shelter from the wind. His clothes were layered but insufficient, his face hidden beneath a hood pulled low. Most people walked past without seeing him, their eyes trained on their phones or the ground, avoiding eye contact, avoiding acknowledgement, avoiding the uncomfortable reality of poverty in a city of immense wealth. Megan stopped. She couldn't explain why exactly. Perhaps it was the way he sat so still with a dignity that seemed at odds with his circumstances. Perhaps it was the memory of her own near miss with homelessness 3 years ago, when the rent came due and the bank account showed zeros, when the only thing standing between her family and the street was the charity of a neighbor who had paid for a month's rent and asked nothing in return. "Excuse me," she said, crouching down to his level. "Would you like half of my sandwich? It's turkey and cheese." Ugh. The man looked up slowly and she caught a glimpse of his face, weathered, bearded, but with eyes that were startlingly clear, a blue so intense it seemed almost artificial. There was intelligence in those eyes, and something else. Sadness, perhaps, or maybe just exhaustion. "That's kind of you," he said, his voice low and rough. Not the slurred speech of someone drunk or high, but the voice of someone who hadn't spoken much recently. "Very kind." "It's nothing, really." She handed him half the sandwich and pulled out the thermos of soup she had packed. "Chicken noodle. It's homemade. Keep the thermos. I'll get it from you later." "Why?" he asked, studying her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "Why help a stranger?" Megan shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "My father used to say that kindness costs nothing but means everything. I guess it stuck with me." She glanced at her watch. She had 15 minutes left of her lunch break. "I have to get back to work. Will you still be here later?" He nodded once, a slow, deliberate movement. "I'll be here." As she turned to go, she felt his eyes on her back, watching her return to the warm building while he remained in the cold. She didn't see Victoria Dawson standing in the lobby, observing the entire exchange with narrowed eyes and pursed lips. The afternoon brought chaos in the form of an unexpected executive resignation. One of the senior vice presidents had quit without notice, and the HR department scrambled to manage the fallout. Victoria transformed into a whirlwind of sharp commands and unreasonable demands, her stress manifesting as cruelty toward anyone within reach. At 4:30, Megan's phone rang. Victoria's voice came through the line like ice. "I need you to stay late tonight. The executive team requires briefing documents by tomorrow morning." Megan's stomach dropped. "I'm sorry, but I can't. I have to pick up my daughter from aftercare by 6. They charge late fees that I can't afford." "This isn't a request, Megan. It's a business necessity." "I understand that, but I'm a single mother. There's no one else who can get her." Victoria's silence stretched for several seconds, heavy with disapproval. When she spoke again, her voice had dropped to a dangerous quiet. "Then perhaps Costa Enterprises isn't the right environment for someone with your limitations." Fear flooded through Megan's chest, cold and sharp. She couldn't lose this job, couldn't start over again. Not now. "Let me make some calls. I'll find someone to help with Haley." 20 minutes and a dozen failed attempts later, she finally reached Mrs. Wilson, her elderly neighbor who agreed to collect Haley from school. Crisis averted, but at what cost? She would owe Mrs. Wilson another favor, another debt in a life already heavy with obligations. Megan threw herself into the work, barely noticing as the office emptied around her, as the windows turned dark, as the building settled into its nighttime silence. At 7:30, she remembered the homeless man and her promise to return. Looking out the window, she could see him still there, barely visible through the falling snow, a darker shadow among shadows. Making a decision, Megan grabbed her emergency credit card, the one reserved for true emergencies, the one she had sworn not to touch unless absolutely necessary, and ordered a hot meal from the deli across the street. When it arrived, she took the elevator down, feeling Victoria's cold gaze following her from across the office. Outside, the temperature had plummeted. The wind cut through her jacket as if the fabric didn't exist. The man looked up as she approached, and she saw surprise flicker across his features. "You came back," he said. "I promised I would." She handed him the bag of food, the warmth from it already fading in the cold. "It's a hot dinner, and here," she unwound her scarf from her neck, the only warm one she owned. "Please take this too." "I can't take your scarf. You'll freeze." "I have others at home," she lied, already feeling the wind bite at her exposed neck. "Please, He accepted both offerings with hands that were chapped and red from exposure. Thank you, Miss Megan. Megan Reed. Thank you, Megan Reed. He paused as if considering whether to offer his own name. I'm Jack. Nice to meet you, Jack. She glanced back at the building, at the lit windows of the 22nd floor where Victoria was no doubt watching. I wish I could do more, but I need to get back. My boss is already unhappy with me. Why? He asked, his voice soft. Why risk her disapproval for a stranger? Megan smiled, though it felt sad on her face. 3 years ago, my husband left us with nothing. There were people who helped when I had nothing to give in return. I'm just paying it forward. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. The world needs more people like you, Megan Reed. Back upstairs, Victoria was waiting by her desk, arms crossed, her expression carved from stone. Did you just give company-ordered food to that vagrant? I paid for it myself, Megan replied, keeping her voice neutral as she returned to her computer. That man has been loitering outside our building for days. Security has been instructed to move him along, not encourage him. He's a human being, Victoria. It's freezing outside. It's inappropriate behavior for a Costa employee. You represent this company even during your lunch break. Megan bit back the response building in her throat. Arguing would accomplish nothing. I'll have the reports finished within the hour. See that you do. But Victoria didn't leave. She hovered, her presence oppressive, until Megan finished the last document and sent it through. At 9 o'clock, as Megan gathered her things, Victoria returned with Thomas Crawford, the head of security. Ms. Reed, Crawford began, looking uncomfortable with his assigned task. We've reviewed the security footage from today. You were observed fraternizing with the vagrant outside, and we believe you gave him company property. What? I told you I paid for the food myself. The thermos, Victoria said, her voice triumphant. It has the Costa Enterprises logo. That's company property. Megan stared at her in disbelief. It's a $5 thermos. I was going to retrieve it tomorrow. Nevertheless, company policy is clear about theft of property. Mr. Crawford, please collect her badge. Theft? Megan's voice rose, panic flooding through her. Are you serious? I have a daughter to support. This is insane. Your final paycheck will be mailed to you, Victoria said, her face showing no emotion. Clean out your desk. Now. 30 minutes later, Megan stood on the sidewalk outside Costa Enterprises, a cardboard box containing the meager contents of her desk in her arms, tears freezing on her cheeks. The homeless man, Jack, was gone. Even the spot where he had been sitting was clean, the cardboard boxes removed, the snow already covering any trace of his presence. How am I going to tell Haley, she whispered to the empty street. How are we going to survive? High above, in an office on the 45th floor that remained dark despite the late hour, a figure stood at the window watching. Gabriel Costa picked up his phone, his voice quiet when he spoke. Frank, it's me. I need you to do something immediately. The morning after her termination arrived gray and cold, matching Megan's mood perfectly. She sat at her small kitchen table, laptop open, staring at job listings that all seemed to require qualifications she didn't have or offered salaries she couldn't survive on. The holiday hiring freeze meant most positions wouldn't be filled until January. 6 weeks away, 6 weeks and 2 rent payments. The math was simple and terrifying. Mom, Haley appeared in the doorway, already dressed for school in jeans and her favorite purple sweater. Are you okay? Megan forced a smile, the same false brightness she had perfected over the past 3 years. Just a little tired, sweetie. Did you pack your math homework? Yeah. Haley studied her mother's face with eyes too perceptive for a 10-year-old. You don't have to go to work today. I've got some time off, Megan said, the lie catching in her throat like broken glass. How about I walk you to school? After dropping Haley off, Megan stopped at a small coffee shop, ordering the cheapest coffee they had and sitting in the back corner to continue her job search. Her phone rang as she was scrolling through yet another listing that promised competitive salary while offering barely above minimum wage. Is this Megan Reed? Asked an unfamiliar male voice. Yes, this is she. My name is Frank Turner. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Gabriel Costa. He would like to meet with you today at 11 o'clock. Megan nearly dropped her phone. I'm sorry, Mr. Costa wants to meet with me. Why? Mr. Costa didn't share his reasons with me, ma'am. A car will collect you at 10:30. What is your current location? Still in shock, Megan gave him the address of the coffee shop. Her mind raced through possibilities. Perhaps Victoria had overstepped her authority. Perhaps there was some procedure for wrongful termination. Perhaps, and this seemed most likely, this was just a formality before the final severance. At precisely 10:30, a black Maserati Quattroporte pulled up to the curb. The driver, a woman with sharp eyes and professional bearing, opened the door. Miss Reed, I'm Diana. Mr. Costa asked me to collect you. The car moved through Manhattan traffic with a smooth silence that felt almost eerie. Megan had expected to return to the Park Avenue building, but instead they drove to the Upper East Side, pulling up in front of an elegant limestone townhouse that occupied an entire corner lot. Mr. Costa works from his private office on Thursdays, Diana explained, leading her up stone steps flanked by iron railings. He'll see you in the study. The townhouse's interior spoke of old money and older traditions, dark wood paneling, leather furniture, paintings that looked original rather than decorative. Everything was muted. The colors, the lighting, even the air itself seemed heavier here, as if the building held secrets in its walls. Diana guided her to a room lined with bookshelves, gesturing for her to wait. Family photographs dotted the shelves between leather-bound volumes. A younger man with dark hair standing beside an elderly couple in front of what looked like a Mediterranean villa. The same man on a boat, the wind catching his hair. The same man in a suit, shaking hands with people Megan didn't recognize, but who looked important. The door opened, and Megan turned, expecting to see the man from the photographs. Instead, she found herself staring at Jack. Except it wasn't Jack. Not really. The man who stood in the doorway was clean-shaven, his dark hair perfectly cut, wearing a suit that probably cost more than 3 months of her former salary. But the eyes were the same, that intense blue that had startled her on the street. "Hello, Megan," he said, his voice the same low register she remembered, but without the roughness, with clarity and authority. "Jack," she whispered, confusion washing over her. "Gabriel Costa, actually." He extended his hand. "Please, sit down." Megan sank into a leather chair, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. You were the homeless man. I don't understand." Gabriel Costa settled into the chair across from her, his movements controlled and deliberate. "Once a year, I spend a week on the streets near my properties. It's a practice I started after my father died. He built this company from nothing, came to America with empty pockets and a willingness to work. He worried I would lose touch with reality if I only saw the world from behind a desk. So it was some kind of test," Megan said, hearing the bitterness in her own voice. "An experience," he corrected gently. "Not designed to test employees specifically. Every year I learned something different. About the city, about people, about myself." He leaned forward slightly. "In 7 years of doing this, you're the only Costa employee who has ever stopped to help me." Anger cut through Megan's confusion, sharp and hot. "And for that kindness, I lost my job. My daughter and I could lose our apartment. So congratulations on your social experiment. That's why I asked you here." His voice remained calm, but she saw something flicker in his eyes. Regret, perhaps, or shame. "Victoria Dawson had no authority to terminate you. The thermos," he reached beside his chair and lifted the familiar object. "I believe this is company property that I've stolen. Perhaps I should be fired as well." Despite everything, despite her anger and fear and exhaustion, Megan found herself laughing. It was absurd, all of it. "I doubt that would go over well." "Probably not." His expression turned serious. "Ms. Dawson's actions were inappropriate and vindictive. I wanted to personally apologize and assure you that your termination has been rescinded. You'll be reinstated immediately with back pay." Relief crashed through Megan like a wave, leaving her breathless. "Thank you. Thank you so much. However," Gabriel continued, "I'd like to offer you something more than just your old position." "What do you mean?" "Your personnel file shows you have a bachelor's degree in business administration, yet you've been working as an administrative assistant. May I ask why?" Megan shifted in her chair, uncomfortable with the question. "After my divorce, I needed stability more than advancement. Being a single parent means making compromises. I understand compromise, he said quietly. My father raised me alone after my mother died when I was 8. I know about sacrifice. He handed her a folder. This is an offer for a position as director of our new community welfare division. The salary is double what you were making, with flexible hours to accommodate your daughter's schedule. Megan opened the folder, her eyes widening at the figures on the page. This is, I don't know what to say. Your compassion yesterday wasn't just kindness, Megan. It was leadership. You did what was right despite potential consequences. That's a quality I value highly. I appreciate the offer truly. But won't people think this is special treatment? That I'm being rewarded for, she trailed off, unsure how to finish the sentence. For showing basic human decency? Gabriel's voice held a trace of humor. I hope they do think that. It might encourage others to do the same. Megan's practical nature reasserted itself. What exactly would this position involve? Costa Enterprises has always made donations, but they've been scattered, inconsistent. I want a dedicated department focused on meaningful community engagement. The first project is developing a comprehensive program to address homelessness in the neighborhoods where we operate. That's, Megan paused, thinking, that's actually a perfect fit. I thought so. He glanced at his watch, a simple piece that somehow looked expensive. I have a meeting shortly. Take the weekend to consider the offer. You can call Frank with your decision on Monday. And Victoria, Megan asked. What happens to her? Gabriel's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. That's no longer your concern, but rest assured, I don't tolerate that kind of management in my organization. As Diana drove her home, Megan's mind whirled with possibilities and doubts in equal measure. The salary would mean security, real security, not the precarious month-to-month existence she had endured for 3 years. They could move to a better apartment, save for Haley's college, stop making decisions based solely on what they could afford, and start making them based on what they wanted. But doubt crept in around the edges. Was this offer genuine, or would it evaporate once Gabriel Costa's guilt subsided? Did she have the skills to succeed in such a position? And what did it mean that a man she had known as a homeless stranger was actually one of the most powerful figures in the city? When she picked up Haley from school, her daughter immediately sensed the change. You look different, Mom. Did something good happen? Maybe, Megan said cautiously. I might have a new job opportunity. That evening, after Haley was asleep, Megan researched Gabriel Costa more thoroughly. The information was surprisingly sparse. Born in Portugal to working-class parents, his family had immigrated to New York when he was young. His father, Manuel Costa, had built a small import business that Gabriel had transformed into the sprawling Costa Enterprises after his father's death 15 years ago. Unlike many business leaders, Gabriel avoided the spotlight. He rarely gave interviews, almost never appeared at social events, and his personal life remained intensely private. One article mentioned his annual disappearances, which his spokesperson attributed to private retreats for strategic planning. Now Megan understood the real reason. Another piece noted substantial anonymous donations to homeless shelters, food banks, and education initiatives throughout the city. The pattern suggested someone who understood poverty from personal experience, not just abstract statistics. As she closed her laptop, her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. The offer is genuine, no strings attached. Trust your instincts. Do what's right for you and Haley. Somehow he had anticipated her doubts. The gesture was both unsettling and reassuring. The weekend passed in a haze of nervous excitement and careful calculation. By Sunday evening, Megan had made her decision. This opportunity wasn't just about her. It was about Haley's future and the chance to make a real difference for people who needed help. People like the woman she had been 3 years ago. Monday morning, she called Frank Turner and accepted the position. Within hours, she received an email with new employee paperwork and instructions to report to the executive floor on Wednesday. Tuesday morning brought another surprise. A courier delivered a package containing a new Costa Enterprises ID badge, business cards with her new title, and a handwritten note. Looking forward to working together. Your thermos has been officially added to your employment benefits package. GC. Inside was also a small velvet box. Megan opened it with trembling fingers, finding a delicate silver pendant in the shape of a thermos. On the back, engraved in tiny letters, were words she recognized. Kindness costs nothing but means everything. Tears welled in her eyes as she fastened the necklace around her neck. For the first time in 3 years, she felt something beyond the constant struggle to survive. She felt hope. Megan's first day as Director of Community Welfare began with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The executive floor of Costa Enterprises occupied the top level of the building, and the elevator ride felt symbolic, rising above where she had been, moving towards something new and uncertain. Frank Turner met her at the elevator. He was in his 50s, Megan guessed, with gray at his temples and eyes that missed nothing. "Miss Reed, welcome, Mr. Costa asked me to show you to your office and introduce you to your team." "My office?" Megan echoed. Frank led her down a corridor lined with the original artwork. Not the generic corporate pieces she was used to, but actual paintings that looked like they belonged in museums. He stopped at a corner office with windows overlooking the city. "This is yours," he said simply. The office was easily 5 times larger than the cubicle she had occupied in HR. A mahogany desk faced the door, while a comfortable sitting area with leather chairs occupied the opposite corner. The lighting was warm rather than the harsh fluorescent she was accustomed to, and everything smelled faintly of lemon and old wood. "Mr. Costa personally selected this space," Frank added. "He thought you'd appreciate the natural light." On the desk sat a new laptop, a company phone, and a small plant with a note attached. "Growth begins with a single seed. GC." Before she could process this, Frank ushered her to a conference room where 3 people waited. "Your team at BUMP," he explained, "all transfers from other departments who requested to work on community initiatives." The introductions went quickly. Ryan Cooper from marketing was 30-something with an easy smile and innovative ideas about outreach. Patricia Winters from finance brought 15 years of budget management and a passion for educational programs. The youngest, Tyler Nguyen from IT, had developed an app in his spare time that tracks shelter availability for the homeless. "Mr. Costa said you'd be setting the department's direction," Ryan explained. "We're eager to hear your vision." Megan took a breath, deciding on honesty. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I want to be transparent. Until last week, I was an administrative assistant in HR. I'm still figuring out what this role entails." To her surprise, Patricia smiled warmly. "We know your background, Megan. Mr. Costa shared your story with us." "He did?" Tyler nodded. "He said you embodied the values this department should represent. That's why we all requested transfers to your team." The morning flew by as they compiled existing charitable programs and brainstormed new initiatives. By lunch, Megan's initial insecurity had transformed into growing excitement. These people believed in the work, and surprisingly, they seemed to believe in her. As the team dispersed for lunch, Frank appeared at the door. "Mr. Costa would like to see you." Gabriel's office was on the same floor but felt worlds apart. Where Megan's space was bright and open, his was deliberately shadowed. Heavy curtains drawn partially across windows, lighting that came from lamps rather than overhead fixtures. One wall displayed those family photographs she had seen at his home. Another held a massive screen showing real-time data from Costa operations worldwide. "Megan," he greeted her, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "How's your first morning?" "Overwhelming but exciting," she admitted. "You've assembled an incredible team." "They're good people who needed the right leadership." He studied her with those blue eyes. You're wearing the pendant." Megan's hand instinctively went to the silver thermos at her throat. "It was a thoughtful gift, thank you. It's a reminder for both of us." He leaned back in his chair. "I have a meeting with my board tomorrow. They'll want to know about our first major community initiative." "Already? We've barely started brainstorming." "Welcome to this level," he said with a slight smile. "Everything moves faster up here. What ideas resonate with you so far?" Megan considered carefully. Tyler mentioned that homeless shelters often operate in isolation. One has empty beds while another turns people away. His app could be expanded citywide, maybe nationally. "That's a start. What else?" "The biggest issue is transition housing. People get temporary shelter but struggle to move into permanent housing. What if Costa converted one of its older properties into affordable apartments with built-in job training facilities?" "Continue." Warming to the subject, Megan outlined her emerging vision, a comprehensive approach addressing not just immediate shelter needs, but underlying issues of job skills, mental health support, and reintegration into the workforce. We could partner with local businesses to provide apprenticeships, creating a clear pathway from homelessness to self-sufficiency. When she finished, Gabriel was silent, his expression unreadable. Megan feared she had overstepped. It's just preliminary thinking, she added hastily. We'd need to research costs, and it's exactly what I hoped for, he interrupted. Practical, compassionate, and systemic. Get me a basic proposal by tomorrow morning. I'll present it to the board. Megan's heart raced. That's barely 18 hours. You'll manage. His confidence in her was both flattering and terrifying. This is your opportunity, Megan. Make it count. Back in her office, Megan rallied her team. They ordered dinner and worked late into the evening, building the proposal from scratch. Around 8, Megan called Mrs. Wilson to check on Haley. We're fine, dear, the elderly woman assured her. Haley's doing homework. She's so proud of your new job. At midnight, as they finalized the presentation, Frank appeared with fresh coffee. Mr. Costa thought you might need this. Is he still here? Megan asked, surprised. He rarely leaves before midnight, Frank replied, setting down the tray. This building is his second home since his wife passed. This revelation caught Megan off guard. I didn't realize he was widowed. 3 years ago, cancer. It was kept very private. Frank hesitated. He's been different since meeting you, Miss Reed. More engaged. Whatever you said to him that day made an impression. After Frank left, Megan sent her team home and reviewed the proposal one final time. It was good, solid, innovative, and true to her vision. She emailed it to Gabrielle at 1 a.m. and headed home, exhausted but satisfied. She was awakened at 6 by her phone ringing. Gabriel's name flashed on the screen. The proposal is excellent, he said without preamble. Meet me at 7:30. The board meeting is at 8. 2 hours later, Megan stood beside Gabriel in the boardroom as he presented their initiative to 12 executives in expensive suits. She supplied details when asked, her initial nervousness giving way to passionate advocacy as they questioned the financial viability. This isn't charity, she explained, surprising herself with her confidence. It's strategic community investment. Every person we help transition from homelessness to employment becomes a productive member of society and potentially a Costa customer or employee. When the questioning ended, Gabriel asked Megan to wait outside while the board deliberated. She paced the hallway, replaying every word, second-guessing her responses. 20 minutes later, Gabriel emerged, his expression neutral. Walk with me, he said, heading toward his office. Did they approve it? Megan asked anxiously. Not exactly. He closed the door behind them. They had concerns about the scale and timeline. Megan's heart sank. I knew we should have been more conservative. Actually, Gabriel continued, they thought we weren't being ambitious enough. They've approved double the initial budget and want to implement the program in 3 cities simultaneously. What? Really? You impressed them, Megan, particularly Jonathan Torres, our most conservative board member. He said you reminded him of his daughter, passionate but practical. Relief and excitement flooded through her. That's incredible. There's more. The board wants quarterly progress updates presented by you. The implication wasn't lost on Megan. She would be regularly presenting to the most powerful people at Costa Enterprises. It was an extraordinary opportunity and responsibility. Thank you for believing in me, she said sincerely. I know you won't disappoint. His gaze held hers for a moment longer than necessary, and Megan felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. There's one more thing. He handed her an envelope. Inside was an invitation to the Costa Enterprises annual holiday gala. The gala is Friday evening. As our new director, your presence is expected. He paused. It's formal attire. Panic flashed through Megan. She didn't own anything remotely suitable for such an event. Gabriel seemed to read her thoughts. There's a clothing allowance for appropriate business attire. Frank can help with the details. The next week passed in a blur of meetings, planning sessions, and late nights. Megan's new role demanded everything she had, but for the first time in years, her work felt meaningful. She was building something that would make a tangible difference. Haley adapted quickly to their new circumstances. Megan now had the flexibility to attend school events, and they had started looking at larger apartments in safer neighborhoods. The night of the gala arrived with equal parts anticipation and anxiety. Megan had used the allowance to purchase a simple but elegant emerald green dress that complemented her auburn hair. The silver thermos pendant rested at her throat. As she checked her appearance one last time, Haley watched from the doorway. "You look like a princess, Mom." Megan laughed. "Just an ordinary person in a fancy dress." "Dad would be sorry he left," Haley said suddenly. Megan knelt to hug her daughter. "Then he did us both a favor, sweetie. We're doing just fine on our own." The company car arrived at 7. As Megan headed toward the waiting vehicle, her phone buzzed with a tip. "Looking forward to introducing you to everyone tonight. You've earned this moment. GC." The car pulled away from the curb, carrying Megan toward an evening that promised to change her life yet again. The Costa Enterprises Holiday Gala transformed the grand ballroom of an exclusive private club into something from another era. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables adorned with white orchids and silver accents. A string quartet played softly in one corner, while waiters moved through the crowd with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Megan entered hesitantly, immediately aware she was in unfamiliar territory. Executives she recognized from company newsletters mingled with celebrities, politicians, and people who simply radiated wealth and power. She clutched her small evening bag, fighting the urge to retreat. "Miss Reed," Frank Turner appeared at her side, elegant in a tuxedo. "Allow me to show you to your table." To her surprise, she was seated at the head table with Gabriel and the board members. Her place card sat directly beside his, a position that drew curious glances from other attendees. "Everyone's staring," she whispered to Frank. "Mr. Costa rarely brings guests to these events," he explained discreetly. "Your presence has sparked speculation." Before Megan could process this, Gabriel himself appeared. In his impeccable tuxedo, he commanded attention without effort. Several people attempted to intercept him, but he moved purposefully toward Megan. "You look stunning," he said, his gaze appreciative but respectful. "That color suits you." "Thank you," she replied, touching the thermos pendant self-consciously. "Everything is beautiful." "Just window dressing," he said dismissively. "The real purpose is connecting with people who can further our mission. Come, there are people you should meet." Throughout dinner, Gabriel introduced Megan to influential figures who could support their initiatives. She spoke passionately about their plans, her nervousness forgotten as she advocated for the cause. "You're a natural," Gabriel murmured as they returned to their table. "Everyone is impressed." "I just believe in what we're doing," she replied honestly. As dessert was served, Gabriel was called away. The woman seated on Megan's other side leaned over with a calculating smile. "So you're Gabriel's new protege. I'm Caroline Torres. My husband Jonathan is on the board." "Lovely to meet you," Megan responded politely. "Gabriel has quite the history of mentoring promising young women," Caroline continued, her voice dropping conspiratorially. "His late wife was his assistant once, as was the girlfriend before that." Megan's smile froze. "I'm sorry?" "Oh, don't look shocked, dear. It's a pattern. Gabriel finds talented women in lower positions, elevates them professionally, and then—" She trailed off meaningfully. "The board calls it the Costa promotion. It never ends well for the women involved." Discomfort crawled up Megan's spine. "I think you've misunderstood our relationship." Caroline patted her hand condescendingly. "That's how it always begins. Just be careful. When it ends, and it always ends, the women tend to leave the company soon after." The woman's words cast a shadow over the remainder of the evening. Megan observed Gabriel more carefully as he moved through the crowd. He was charming with everyone, not just her. Was that evidence against Caroline's insinuations or confirmation of practiced technique? When dancing began, Gabriel returned. "Would you care to dance?" he asked, extending his hand. Her hesitation must have shown. "Is something wrong?" "Not at all," she lied, accepting his hand. On the dance floor, Gabriel was a confident lead, guiding her effortlessly among other couples. "You've been quiet since I returned," he observed. "Did Caroline say something to upset you?" Megan considered deflecting but chose honesty. "She mentioned your history of mentoring female employees." Gabriel's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Ah, The Torres family specializes in elegant character assassination. Is it true? Megan asked directly. He guided her toward a quieter corner. Some of it. My late wife was indeed my executive assistant before we dated and married. That relationship ended with her death, not workplace politics. And there was one other serious relationship with a colleague years ago. It didn't work out. His eyes held hers steadily. Two relationships over 15 years hardly constitutes the pattern, Caroline implied. Relief and embarrassment washed through Megan. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have listened to gossip. Don't apologize. It's a reasonable question. His hand tightened slightly at her waist. For complete clarity, Megan, I promoted you because of your compassion and capability. Nothing more, nothing less. The music ended and Gabriel was immediately approached by an elderly man. He excused himself reluctantly, leaving Megan to return to their table alone. As she sipped champagne watching the glittering crowd, a familiar figure approached. Victoria Dawson, looking shocked to see Megan at the head table. Enjoying your meteoric rise? Victoria asked, her smile brittle. It's been an adjustment, Megan answered neutrally. I'm sure, Victoria lowered her voice. Just between us, how did you really catch Costa's attention? It must have been something special. Anger flared in Megan's chest. I treated a homeless man with basic human dignity, something you might try sometime. Victoria's eyes widened. So it's true. Costa was actually out there playing homeless. Everyone thought it was a bizarre rumor. I have nothing more to say to you, Megan replied, turning away. You won't last, Victoria hissed. None of his projects ever do. The encounter left Megan unsettled. She excused herself to the restroom, needing escape from curious eyes and whispered speculation. In the elegant powder room, she stared at her reflection. The woman looking back seemed like a stranger, polished, confident, belonging in this world. But doubts crept in. Had her promotion really been about abilities, or was she simply Gabriel Costa's latest project? As she returned to the ballroom, she saw Gabriel waiting, concern evident. You disappeared, he said. Is everything all right? Just needed air, she replied. It's been overwhelming. Victoria upset you. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. His voice was gentle but firm. What did she say? Megan sighed. She implied I'm your latest project, that I won't last. Something flashed in his eyes, anger perhaps, or frustration. Would you walk with me? There's something I'd like to show you. Curious despite her reservations, Megan followed him through a side door and up to a small terrace overlooking the city. The December air was biting, but the view of Manhattan's lights was breathtaking. Gabriel removed his jacket and placed it around her shoulders. Better? Thank you, she said, pulling it closer, surrounded by his scent. Cedar and something uniquely him. My father brought me here when I was 12, Gabriel said, gazing out at the skyline. It was my first formal event after my mother died. I hated every minute, the uncomfortable clothes, the adults offering empty condolences, the suffocating expectations. He turned to her. I escaped to this terrace. My father found me an hour later. Instead of being angry, he sat with me and told me something I've never forgotten. Success means nothing if you lose yourself in the process. Wise words, Megan said softly. Words I haven't always lived by, Gabriel admitted. The truth is, I've lost myself more than once. I've let this company become my entire identity. My marriage suffered because I couldn't separate Gabriel from Costa Enterprises. When my wife got sick, I threw myself into work instead of being present. By the time I realized what I was doing, it was too late. He leaned against the railing. These annual weeks I spend on the street, they're my attempt to reconnect with reality, to remember that business and humanity are not the same thing. Why are you telling me this? Megan asked. Because you deserve the truth. He faced her fully. You're not a project, Megan. Meeting you, the real you, not the employee, changed something in me. Your kindness without expectation of return reminded me of who I used to be before spreadsheets and profit margins consumed everything. Megan's heart raced at the raw honesty in his voice. What happens now? That depends on what you want. He took a step closer. Professionally, nothing changes. Your position, your team, your vision, they're yours regardless of anything else between us. And personally, the words slipped out before she could stop them. Personally, he said, his voice dropping, I'd like the chance to know you better outside the office. No expectations, no pressure, just two people sharing a meal, a conversation, a connection. The moment stretched between them, filled with possibility. Megan thought of Caroline's warnings, Victoria's insinuations, the complications that could arise. But she also thought of the man who had sat in the snow, who had recognized her worth when others hadn't, who was looking at her now with such genuine hope. I'd like that, she said finally. His smile transformed his face. Good. They stood in comfortable silence, the city lights twinkling below. Then Megan laughed softly. What's amusing, he asked. Just thinking about how much has changed in 2 weeks, from getting fired for helping a homeless man to standing on a terrace with Gabriel Costa. Life takes unexpected turns, he agreed. Speaking of which, he withdrew a small envelope from his pocket. There's something else. Inside was a deed to a condominium in a family-friendly neighborhood near Haley's school. What is this? Megan asked, confused. Part of our new employee housing initiative, key personnel receive housing assistance as a benefit. The monthly payments are substantially reduced and go toward eventual ownership. Megan stared at the document. I can't accept this. It's not a gift, Megan. It's a company benefit you've earned. Your file indicates your current lease expires next month. This provides stability for you and Haley. Tears pricked at her eyes. You've thought of everything. Not everything, he said softly. But I'm learning to think beyond business again. That's your influence. Inside, the orchestra began playing a familiar melody. Gabriel extended his hand. Shall we return, or would you prefer to escape the stuffiness a bit longer? Megan smiled, taking his hand. Let's stay a few more minutes. The view is better. Indeed it is, he replied, his gaze never leaving her face. 6 months later, Megan stood in the newly renovated Costa Transition Center, watching as the first residents moved into their temporary apartments. The facility, once an underutilized Costa property, now offered housing, job training, counseling services, and childcare for families transitioning from homelessness. It's even better than I imagined, said a voice behind her. Gabriel approached, casually dressed in jeans and a button-down, rather than his usual suit. We did it, Megan agreed, pride evident in her voice. All the work, all the late nights. It was worth it to see these families having a real chance. You did it, he corrected, slipping his arm around her waist. This was your vision from the beginning. Their relationship had evolved cautiously over the months, both aware of potential complications. They kept professional interactions strictly businesslike, while their personal connection deepened through quiet dinners, weekend outings with Haley, and conversations that stretched into the night. Haley adored him, especially after he helped her build a science project that won first place. And Megan had found in Gabriel something she'd never expected, a partner who respected her independence while offering unwavering support. I have something for you, Gabriel said, reaching into his pocket. Another company benefit? She teased. No, this is entirely personal. He handed her a small velvet box. Inside was not a ring, as she had momentarily feared, but a charm to add to her silver thermos necklace. A tiny key. What's this for? She asked, touching it gently. It represents doors opening. The doors you've opened for these families. The doors you've opened in my life. He paused. And maybe someday the door to our home, if that's a path you choose to take. Megan looked up at this remarkable man who had entered her life in the most unexpected way. Are you asking what I think you're asking? Not exactly, he said with a smile. I'm just letting you know the possibility exists whenever you're ready. No pressure, no timeline. She reached up and kissed him softly. Thank you for understanding what I need. Always, he promised. As they toured the facility, greeting new residents and staff, Megan reflected on the journey that had brought her here. A simple act of kindness on a snowy day had changed not only her life, but countless others through the program she now led. That evening, they shared dinner with Haley in the condominium that now truly felt like home. Gabriel entertained them with stories of his latest street experience, this time in Philadelphia. You're still doing that? Megan asked, surprised. More than ever, he confirmed. But now I have you to remind me of what's important. Later, after Haley had gone to bed, they sat on the balcony overlooking the city. Megan fingered the key charm beside the thermos. "I've been thinking," she said hesitantly. "Always dangerous," he teased. She smiled. "I'm ready to consider that path we talked about earlier. Not immediately, but soon." His expression softened. "Really?" "Haley needs stability, and I needed time to be sure this wasn't just gratitude or admiration." She took his hand. "But what I feel for you is real, Gabriel. It's not about Costa Enterprises or what you can provide. It's about who you are, the man who sits with the homeless, who remembers his father's wisdom, who looks at my daughter like she's precious." "She is precious," he said simply. "So is her mother." As the city lights twinkled around them, Megan leaned her head against his shoulder. From administrative assistant to executive, from single mother struggling to survive to woman contemplating a shared future with a man who saw her true worth. Her journey had been unexpected in every way. But then the best stories often begin with a simple act of kindness, sometimes with a borrowed thermos on a cold winter day.